Well, it's been a while since I've invited you all out to my garden. I think the last time we were here, there were just empty beds and white lines on the ground, so things have changed a little bit. We have just come out of 2 of the driest months and 3 of the hottest weeks that I can remember in almost 20 years of living in Nashville. And so I thought I would show you a little bit about how my garden sort of survived that period of time and what I do to keep things looking lush and healthy and full. And of course, one of the answers is I water a lot. I have the luxury of being on a well out here in the country, a really good well, so I don't have to worry too much about being able to water or how much I can water. There is no irrigation system here. It's all hand watering or sprinkler watering. And so I keep the hoses at the ready all the time. No matter how much water is in the soil, no matter how much moisture is in the soil, sometimes it is so hot and so dry, the air is so dry, that the plants still cannot pull enough water up through their roots, especially when they're big and lush and full. For example, this elephant ear really suffered during the drought, and it's not because it wasn't well watered. It was because the leaves are so big and they lose water at such a rapid rate, the roots can't take up the water in the soil fast enough to keep the leaves from actually burning and scorching. One of the things that I will do now that the weather has broken a little bit, that the heat is giving us a little bit of reprieve, we're back sort of to normal weather, which is still hot and humid, but not nearly like we've experienced. I will go through and begin lightly fertilizing things to encourage the roots to kind of get a jump start. We'll keep watering the same way that I have been over the last few weeks and really keep the plants saturated. I also will use all of my organics, any kind of liquid compost or liquid compost teas, anything to encourage the biological activity in the soil, because it suffers also, and keeping your soil healthy is just as important as keeping the plants themselves healthy, so that all of those systems work together and your garden stays looking great. You know, there are a few plants that haven't fully recovered from this heat and drought stress, and they may not. This grass actually looks pretty good, but you can see here in front of me that it actually has kind of split open in the middle. And what I'll have to do is go in and put some stakes on this and actually tie it back up. It is so weak down at the base and has split open so far that it probably will not stand back up on its own. So I'll have to go in and help it out a little bit. You know, coming into my little vegetable patch, I didn't plant a lot this year, but I do love to have fresh tomatoes during the growing season. And I have everything from really good cherry tomatoes to nice big slicers. And late in the season, we may even do a little canning if I have enough. I picked this beauty yesterday, really a big one. It probably weighs a pound. It's not quite ripe, but I actually like to pick them a little before they're completely ripe, because it's a contest between myself and the critters who gets them first. And if I let them get completely ripe on the vine, a lot of times the chipmunks get to them before I do, or the raccoons. So I pick them just a little bit green and let them ripen up on the screen porch, and they're just as good. Now, this tomato actually came off of this plant next to me, which you can see is almost 7 feet tall. What happens during the hottest and driest part of the summer, and especially when we have weather like we've had the last few weeks, the tomatoes actually will stop setting for a period of time. When the night temperatures don't drop below 78 or 80 degrees for several days at a time. So what you'll see on these tomatoes, if you were really to look under the leaves and get inside, there are lots of tomatoes up to about this point, and there really are not any more beyond that. Because this plant has gotten so tall and because these tomatoes are so big, I'll probably come in the next week or so and prune a lot of these branches back and force a flush of new growth further down inside the plant, so that when these big tomatoes set, they're not hanging up here and breaking these stems off, but that they're down inside the cage and actually have some support behind them. The other thing I want to mention very briefly is that it's not too late to plant. A lot of us don't consider planting in midsummer during the hottest part of the year, but I actually lost a plant here a few weeks ago and I have one to replace it. So what I thought I would do is just show you real quickly how I go about doing that. I found a great little replacement for it at the garden center the other day that still looked nice and healthy. I have a hole that was already sort of pre-dug, so I've kind of shallowed my place out again so that I have a nice well here that will hold water. I'm going to scatter just a little bit of organic fertilizer in the bottom of the hole so that the plant has nutrients available to it right away. We'll stir this in just a little bit. And then, as you've seen before, we're going to remove the bottom leaves from this plant. And I'm going to plant it pretty deep into this hole. We'll get able to dig down in there nice and deep. I actually dug this out with a shovel and chopped the soil up really nicely. So we'll plant it 2 or 3 inches up the stem. Got my watering can here. We'll water it in good. And what will happen is this little plant will take off and grow very quickly. Tomatoes like the hot weather. They grow really quickly in the hot weather, even if they're not setting fruit. We'll put its cage back over it. It will grow right up inside there. It will grow tremendously fast over the next 6 weeks. It will fill this entire cage. And what I'll have is a nice late crop of tomatoes that probably won't start ripening until mid-September, and I'll have tomatoes all the way till frost. So if some of your plants have, especially very vigorous growers like cherry tomatoes and things, get a little tired looking at the end of the season or the middle of the season, or if you happen to lose a plant like I did, you can always replace it and get a really nice crop of late season tomatoes. Well, none of us want to be out here when it's 109 degrees outside and we haven't had any water in weeks and weeks. We suffer just the same way the garden does. So remember, early morning, later in the evening is the best time to water because it keeps the water off the leaves of the plants, or it keeps the sun and the water off of the leaves of the plants at the same time. Remember to keep yourself just as well hydrated as you keep the garden, and I think we've all managed to survive this pretty well.
For inspiring garden tours, growing tips, and garden projects, visit our website at volunteergardener.org or on YouTube at the Volunteer Gardener channel, and like us on Facebook.